So we are going to read some verses and purports from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, beginning with the verse on the board, text 14.
As we've just heard, the senses of the living entities cannot function independently from the plan of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is called Rishikesh, the master of the senses. And this term, Rishikesh, includes the senses of all living beings. The Lord is the master of everyone's senses, because everyone's senses are simply products of His creative potency, as we've heard in these verses. But although this is the fact, that the senses belong to the Lord, still, when the living entity is presented with a nice new body composed of these senses, then he foolishly longs for independent perception and independent movement. And this is simply the interaction of the modes of nature. That's all. From out of this Mahatattva, which we're reading about, there are three kinds of ahamkar, or false ego, which appear. There's the sattvika ahankar, the false ego in mode of goodness. Which is the original state of the jiva. This sattvika ahankar means the total mind. Mind is in the mode of goodness. Or this is the adhyatmika stage, where the living entity is aware of himself. Self-realization. Then there is the rajasa ahankar, false ego and motive passion. So it's out of this that the senses appear. And then finally there's the tamasa ahankara, from out of which the sense objects appear. So you know from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Rajas tamas vibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata, Rajas sattvam tamas chaiva, what is that? Tamas sattvam rajastava. That these modes of nature, they compete with one another for prominence. That is automatically. That is the way they are made to work. So initially, the living entity is in the Sattvika ahankara, in the mode of goodness, the adhyatmika conception.
И първоначално живото същество се намира адhyatmika разбирането или в сатва аханкара и поживото в гуната на доброто.
In this condition, he is not identifying with the body,
В това състояние то не се изживява с тялото.
but then from out of the rajasa ahankara, the senses make their appearance.
И след това от раджаса аханкара се появяват сетивата.
And when the consciousness of the living entity connects with the senses, then there is attachment.
И когато съзнанието на живото същество се свържи с сетивата, възниква привързаността.
That's the symptom of the mode of passion, attachment.
И това е симптомът на вънкността, привързаността.
So then, there begins to arise this conception of I am the body.
И това възниква и концепцията за аз съм тялото.
Because you see, subtly, in all three stages, the false ego is there.
Защото на платформа всички етапи на фалшивото его се намират.
Aham mameti, false idea of I and mine.
Ахам мамети, погрешната идея за аз и моя.
So first he's thinking, I am great, I am the enjoyer.
Първо, просто мисля, аз съм велик, аз съм създаващият си.
False ego in mode of goodness.
Фалшивото его на доброто.
That means the mentality is imitative of Krishna.
Това означава, че менталитетът му имитира този на Кришна.
And then when the senses manifest, he further identifies through false ego with them.
И когато се проявят сетивата, то по-нататък се изпестява с тях чрез фалшивото его.
And thus his consciousness becomes covered by, or colored by passion.
Така съзнанието му се набавя с страх.
Now these senses, they automatically, by their own nature, they strive to attain or to connect with sense objects.
И сетивата автоматично по природа се опитват да се свържат с сетивните обекти.
The sense objects are the sound, which is heard, the sight, which is seen, visible objects, and the sense of touch, and the smell and the taste.
И сетивните обекти това са звукът, това, което ние наблюдаваме, това е сетивото за допир, също усет, измерен.
So, everyone can understand that automatically the senses strive for their objects.
И всеки може да разбере, че автоматично сетивата се опитват да се свържат с техните обекти.
As soon as you open your eyes in the morning, the eye is flooded with sight, with visible objects all around.
Веднага, щом си отворите сутрин очите и веднага започвате да наблюдавате най-различни обекти.
So you don't have to preach to your eye to get enthusiastic to see something.
Не трябва да проповядвате на очите си да се ентусиазират да гледат нещо.
See? By its own nature, its own natural function, it will see, and the ears will hear, and the nose will smell, and all these things.
По природа, естественото ще виждат, ушите ще слушат, носът ще дишат.
But these sense objects, they're all products of the tamasa ahankara, mode of ignorance.
А сетивните обекти са продукт на тамаса аханкара или името на невежда.
So you see how the living entity, the soul, by the influence of these modes of nature, is more and more carried away from himself.
душата, благодарение на тези години, природата все повече и повече се отдръпва от себе си.
First of all, in the mode of goodness, thinking himself to be so great. Then in the mode of passion, feeling the energized senses, the agitated senses. And then finally, in the mode of ignorance, connecting with material sense objects and thinking, yes, these are very nice, I will enjoy them.
Първо, като се отредистява с вината на доброто, то се мисли за много велико, след това се чувства в вината на сърцата много ентусиазирано, като притежава тези сетива. И вината на вежеството ще се свързва с сетивата и се мисли, че по този начин ще много да се наслаждава.
So in this way he's covered by Maya.
И по този начин той е покрито.
And he forgets that these senses, also the mind, the sense objects, everything, these are the energies of the Supreme Lord. Thus he embarks on the path of sin. Sin means to misuse the energy of the Lord. The Lord manifests these senses with his own plan in mind, how they should be used. But when the living entity forgets the Lord, is thinking these senses are mine, these sense objects are mine, let me enjoy, then he devises his own plan, his own separate plan, which is sinful. So we should understand why this happens. Because it is happening all around us. It is also, it may happen to us at any moment. If it hasn't already happened. How is it that the living entity, who is of course spiritual in his own nature, succumbs, surrenders to the degrading influence of the modes of nature? With every stage he's degraded. He's transcendental, but he's degraded to the mode of goodness, first of all, material mode of goodness, and then from there degraded to the mode of passion, and then degraded to the mode of ignorance. So what makes the living entity degradable? So that is called Anishtha in Sanskrit. It means unsteadiness. So the root of this word Anishtha, to be unsteady, is Nishtha. Who knows what Nishtha means? Steady? Yes, but there's another word also. Steady, and then steady what? This is all explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 10, purport. Steady faith. In that purport, you'll find explained Shraddha, the beginning faith, and then one who has beginning faith, beginning stage of faith, he should associate with devotees, sadhu sangha. And if he associates with devotees, then he can engage in devotional service, which is called bhajana kriya. And if he engages in devotional service, then what happens? Who can say? Have you read this purport?
Call it this pure soul.
Well, one word is significant in what you just said. Pure, one becomes purified.
Yes.
Anartha-nivriti. He becomes purified of contamination, and then the next stage, I think you should read the Bhagavad Gita more. The next stage is Nishtha. Then he becomes steady, firmly situated in faith. The faith is unshakable. That Nishtha stage does not mean that he's realized everything in Krishna consciousness. For that there are further stages. Ruchi, he gets a taste for hearing and chanting. He becomes attracted to it. Then asakti, he becomes attached to hearing and chanting. Then bhava, he experiences transcendental ecstasy. And then prema, pure love of God. So those stages come after Nishtha. But Nishtha means he'll not fall down. He's firmly situated in the process of devotional service. So when one is anishtata, that means not steady. That means he hasn't come across this anartha-nivriti, this stage of purification. There's still anarthas, impurities in the heart. So in a neophyte's devotional service, this unsteadiness manifests as, for instance, laya. Laya means sleepiness. He's too sleepy. One who's too sleepy, what is that the indication? Which mode can we say? Yes, ignorance. So that mode, tamoguna, is influencing him. Now, sleep, of course, the senses have to rest. So there's a prescribed period of time. One should regulate the time in which he gives rest to the senses. But sleepiness, to be always in the state of laya, means always sleepy, whenever there's class, whenever japa.
Този, който е постоянно в лая, винаги му се спи, когато има клас, също спи, когато му
If he does a little bit of service for Krishna, exerts himself a little bit, then also.
Направи нещо малко за Кришна, малко, може някакви усилия веднага след това пали си.
Because when we serve Krishna, we should feel enlivened. But if we are doing some service and just getting tired, this means laya, this means tamogun is very strong on this person.
Защото ние служим на Кришна, трябва да се чувстваме вдъхновени, но ако след това не изпиваме, трябва да знаем, че всичко влияе на вдъхновението.
Another symptom of Anishtha is vikshepa, which means always being in material mental conception.
Друг признак на Аништха е викшепа, който означава винаги сме в материална концепция.
Always speculating, in other words. You see? Even when chanting japa, the mind is creating so many material conceptions, material thoughts, material memories. Another symptom of this anishtha is apraptipati, it's called. That means disinterest. Even when he's not sleepy, even when he's not speculating, still, he's not that interested in doing devotional service. Just like someone is sitting in the brahmachari ashram, so he has nothing to do, he's not sleeping, he's not speculating, he's just sitting there. And then it's announced, Prabhu, there is program in the temple, there will be chanting, there will be class. But he's not so interested. Oh, all right. Then even he'll start to think, what else can I do besides go down to the temple? Maybe there's something I forgot to do. Then he comes, oh, I didn't take shower yet. Prabhu, I didn't take shower. I have to take shower. He was not worried about taking shower before, but suddenly, now he should take shower and do so many things. And then another symptom of unsteadiness is called kashaya, which means sinful habits. For instance, a tendency to become angry at others, a tendency to be envious of others, to criticize others. And of course the tendency to become lusty.
И разбира се, искреността да става.
And then finally there is rasavad. Rasavad means taste for sense gratification.
И накрая расават, което означава вкус към сетивното наслаждение.
So when one's mind is affected by these, that means he is a nishtata. He is not steady in devotional service.
Когато умът на човек повлияе на тези, тогава той е нищата и неустойчиво в преданното.
And thus he is easily overwhelmed by the modes of nature.
И така той е лесно повлиян от органите на природата.
Easily degraded, easily taken down from his rightful position as eternal servant of Krishna.
Той е много лесно деградира от своята истинска позиция на слуга на Кришна.
Now we can ask, all right, so what is the cause? What is the fundamental cause of this unsteadiness?
Можем да се запитаме каква е крайната причина на тази неустойчивост.
That is answered in the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4. There is a word, manarudo. Manarudo means false prestige.
И това се Шримад Бхагаватам, 4-та песен, където се споменава думата мана, което означава фалшив престиж.
It is said, manarudo nibadyate guna pravaha patito. So, because the living entity, thinking himself as important, as great, as someone very special, then nibadyate, he becomes entangled. That is the cause.
И там се казва, че тъй като живото се мисли за велико, за някой, който е много специален, тогава това е причината за неговото отритане.
He becomes entangled in the senses and the sense objects.
Той се опитва в сетивата си да
So, and then, guna pravaha patito. You all know the word patita. Fallen. Yeah. So, guna pravaha patito. One falls under the influence of the gunas, the modes of nature, because of this.
И заради това човек попада под влиянието на гуните на природата.
So, therefore, the cure for this anishtata, this unsteadiness, is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Omonina manadena. That is the opposite of manaruddha.
И затова този лек анищата даден от Чайтания Махапрабху, който казва амани на манадена. Това е обратното на манадена.
So, Lord Chaitanya says, instead of thinking ourselves as being very great, praiseworthy, we should think of ourselves as being insignificant. We should expect no respect for ourselves, but we should be always ready to offer respect to others. That should be the natural state of our mind. That's the opposite of manaruddha. Manaruddha means I'm very important, and why aren't these people praising me? And if someone praises me, oh, you're my good friend. What did Maharaj, what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati said about persons who offer praise? Yeah. their one's worst enemy. That is amonina monadina. That's the opposite. If someone says, oh, you're very nice, very great, then one in this state of mind, amonina monadina, thinks, oh, this is my enemy speaking. Not that he will attack that person for speaking like that, not in that sense of seeing him as enemy. But he will correct that person, saying, do not waste your breath offering praise to me. You are a very intelligent person. So why do you praise me? You are so intelligent. You should praise Krishna. So this is the natural frame of mind of one who is on a steady platform of Krishna consciousness. What does Lord Chaitanya say about this? Amonina, amonadena. What's the next one? Kirtaniya sada. In this frame of mind, one always engages in kirtan. So, the Lord is very kind to the living entity. Although we have fallen down under the modes of nature, He nonetheless appears so that we can re-establish our rightful relationship with Him. The Lord is called, of course, Bhagavan. So He appears, Bhagavan appears in three ways. To save the living entity. So, one way Bhagavan is appearing in His own original form, as we said the other day, the holy name, Nama Rupa. This is a form. And another form is the Archamurti. These are two ways in which Bhagavan appears. These are the two features of the Lord's Murti, or Rupa. So, and these two ways of revealing His Murti constitutes one of the three ways which Bhagavan appears. One is in His Rupa, in His own form. Another way He appears, Bhagavan, is as Bhagavata, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that we can hear Nasta Prayeshu Bhagaveshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. Bhagavata Uttama Shloki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Here it is specifically said Naishtiki, Nishta. One comes to the Nishta platform by regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Тоест ти се казва, че човек си стига до платформата на Аништха, като слуша редовно Шримад Бхагаватам.
But there's also a third meaning, or third understanding of Bhagavan or Bhagavata. Bhagavat means Supreme Lord. Bhagavat means the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Bhagavat also means
Bhagavat означава върховната божественост, означава Шримад Бхагаватам, всичко означава
the devotee, the Lord's devotee. So in these three ways, Bhagavat appears in this world to save the fallen soul. So the fallen soul simply has to become established in his proper relationship with Bhagavat. Worshipping the form of the Lord and serving the devotee of the Lord. And hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, Tadarajas Tamo Bhava Kama Lobdayasche Cheta Etayar Anavritam Shtitvam Satyam Prasidati. Bhagavatam says, in this way, then the contamination of the modes of nature in the heart are washed off. And Stitva Sattvam Prasidati. In this stita, he becomes stita, he becomes fixed. This is again Nishtha. He's fixed in pure goodness. And he's prasidati, he's happy in that position. So, even though the modes present themselves to him, he's not interested. He doesn't become attracted because he's satisfied in Krishna consciousness. So here we can understand what is the real meaning of humility, since humility is the cure for unsteadiness. Humility means service to the Lord's form. Humility means hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Humility means service to the pure devotee. Humility does not mean thinking oneself so unworthy, therefore he cannot do anything. Oh no, I can't serve the form of the Lord. I'm too fallen. Oh no, I can't serve the pure devotee, the spiritual master. I'm too fallen. Oh, I can't hear Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm so foolish. I never understand. This type of so-called humility is not humility. It's simply unwillingness to surrender. And what is this? It is simply the same old thing. Manoluda. He's so humble He's thinking himself so special. I'm so humble. I can't serve Krishna.
Това е същото, за което говорихме. Той си мисля да е толкова специален, толкова смирен, че не може да служи на Кришна.
So this is a very clever way in which Maya tricks us, in the name of humility, to be puffed up.
Това е един много хитър трик на Майя, да ни измами името на смирението, да се надуваме.
To only think of ourselves.
Да мислим само за себе си.
Oh, I'm so fallen.
Аз съм толкова.
I'm so unqualified.
Аз съм толкова неквалифициран.
I.
Аз.
So, then one remains under the grip of the modes of nature.
Да, човек остава комплетен от любовта.
So, these lessons that we're hearing in Srimad Bhagavatam about the manifestation of the senses, how the senses are Krishna's, all senses are Krishna's, how they function under his control. They are meant to help us understand what humility really means. He is the Lord. He is the Master. We are his servant. So he has given us these senses for what? You see? To engage in his service. That is humility. That is our proper relationship with Krishna.
Тези описания в Шримад Бхагаватам на това как се появяват сетивата и как те са собственост на Бога, за да ни помогнат да разберем нашето истинско положение, да бъдем смирени и да разберем, че Кришна ни е дал тези сетива, за да помогнат да ни служи.
And any other idea than this is Manoruddha.
И всяка друга идея, освен това е Маноруда.
As I said, even the so-called humility. Oh, I can't. I'm too humble. I'm too fallen. I'm too low to engage my senses in Krishna. That's Manoruddha.
Дори така нареченото смирение, аз съм твърде паднал, твърде низък, да мога да служа на Кришна. Това е също Маноруда.
Then one will have to suffer the consequences.
Това човек ще трябва да страда от последиците.
So we should not be foolish.
Това не трябва да сме глупави.
These descriptions of the Bhagavatam are here to give us proper intelligence, to see what is the spiritual function of these very senses we have in this body, in this present body, so-called material body. These senses we have a spiritual function.
Това описание ще има Бхагаватам и да помогне да разберем какво е духовното значение на съдбата на това наше така наречено материално право. Да имат духовно значение.
So an intelligent person can grasp this. And if he grasps it, it means he'll do it. If he's not intelligent, he'll neither grasp it or be able to do it. So you may say, someone may try to get away from this by saying, oh, but I'm unintelligent. Yeah, but this is intelligence here. Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why it is said, Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. Just serve this Bhagavatam by regularly hearing, regularly attending the class. And what is the result? Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. One will become fixed in devotion to the Lord. Right. So that's very good. You say you have no intelligence? Fine, here it is. Just take it then. Oh, I'm too unintelligent to take it. Then you're a nonsense.
Да. Аз съм глупост.
Then you're not being what you are.
Да, вие не сте това, което всъщност сте.
You're claiming to be humble, but you're not humble.
Вие бирате да сте смирени, но не сте смирени.
Because you're meant for this. You're spirit soul.
Защото вие сте предназначени за това, вие сте душа.
Real humility simply means to be what you are, because its spirit soul is very small, 1/10,000, the tip of a hair.
Истинско смирение означава да бъдем това, което сме души, които са една десетина част от върха на косъм.
And he's a servant of Krishna.
И душата се дава Кришна.
So to take that position, that's real humility.
Да приемем тази позиция, която означава истинско смирение.
Any other position, to try to be inactive or whatever, you see, simply absorbed in one's own disqualification.
Всяка друга позиция, да бъдем недействени и само да се бъдем погълнати от нашите лоши качества.
This is not the actual position of the soul.
Това не е действителната позиция на душата.
So we'll stop here. Are there any questions?
Има ли някакви въпроси?
The what is it?
The atom.
The atom. Yes.
Substantial particle. На времето
Mm-hmm.
so she couldn't understand.
Well, it's the same thing as the physicists of today say. It's actually the same point.
Това е всъщност същото, което казват днес физиците.
That time and space, they say, just like Einstein said, time and space are relative.
Също както Айнщайн каза, времето и пространството са относителни.
And so if they are relative means related to each other in a certain way. What is relating them, time and space? That is seen, for instance, at the atomic level, as described in the Bhagavatam.
Това, те са относителни, тяхното, връзката между тяхното времето и пространството може да си види в тази частица атома, която се добавя там.
So, from the movement of the atom through space, time is calculated.
И от движението на атома в пространството се измерва време.
So then, atom being fundamental particle, then time is just like material objects are constructed from the collection of atoms. So similarly, time is radiating out from the atom in terms of higher or more and more complex material forms.
Също както материалните форми са изградени постепенно от много атоми, по същия начин и времето се излъчва от атомите постепенно все по-големи форми.
Just like we calculate the year according to the passage of the, well, scientists would say the movement of the earth around the sun. We would say the movement of the sun around the earth.
Също както годината се изчислява според учените в основа на движението на Земята около Слънцето, ние ще кажем Слънцето около Земята.
So, but these great objects, earth and sun, you see, are composed of atoms. So just as time is calculated from the movement of these great objects in terms of year, so there are extremely small units of time that are calculated from the movement of the atom. So, what Bhagavatam is saying is that time calculation begins there. Because time and space are relative movement of matter through space determines time. So then the smallest calculation of time, or most fundamental calculation of time, is made at the atomic platform.
И Бхагават там казва, че най-първичното измерване на времето е на атомно ниво, защото времето, пространството и времето са.
Was that clear? Yeah.
Знаем, че много разширението на първото желание и желанието да се обличаваме от другите. Дали да изглеждате нещо подобно в практика, какво означава това предположение, че всички жени са индивидуални?
I know that's one of the forms of sex desire is to be distinguished.
Well, profit, adoration, distinction. These are three subtle forms of sex desire. So the distinction means the desire to stand out from others. You know, this is seen when boy or girl, they reach puberty, you know, adolescence, age 11, 12, when the subtle sex desire, first it's subtle, it appears in the mind. So at that age, you see, before when they were young, they had no, you know, no conception of being different from others. They're just kids, and they just play with other kids, and you know. But when they reach that age, then you see suddenly they're starting to dress in a special way. Or suddenly the girl, you know, she will wear her hair in a special way, different from the others. Or the boy, you know, he's also doing things that are special to make him stand out. So this is distinction.
Те са били малки децата и не ги думали какво са деца и да други деца в тази възраст. Те започват да си мислят как да станат по-различни, как момиче се слага си прави послата по определен начин, по-различно от другите, че да прави нещо, с което да се различава. Това означава желание да се различава.
На тази връзка, ако според обстоятелството се случва така, че външно се различаваме. Примерно, дори в нашия стандартно обличане, това може по някакъв начин да бъде обяснено. защото някъде там е въпрос. Всеки от нас има своя форма на мисля, своя качество и дрехи. И по този начин тук някъде да разграничим.
In this connection, because all we have different faces.
Как да се чете? Как да разбираме това разграничение в този момент? Дали това е естествено или нещо?
How to understand this distinction?
Well, as I said, it's a desire. You're distinct. That's true. As an individual living entity, you're distinct. But I gave the example of young children. They're not aware. They're not aware of these distinctions.
Индивидуално живи същества, но това е въпрос на желание, както казах, малки децата не осъзнават тази разлика.
You see, young children, little boys and girls, when they're in school, when they go to school, the teacher tells them, they're very well behaved because one of the reasons is because of this lack of a sense of distinction. You see, the teacher says do this, they all do this. They're not thinking, why should I do this? That's not meant for me. I'm different.
Например, когато малките деца отидат на училище, те се държат много добре, защото няма такова чувство за да се отличават. Когато учителят им каже, не правите това, те го правят. Не си мислят, защо трябва да го правят, това не е за мен, аз съм друг.
But when the desire manifests to distinguish oneself in a special way, that is subtle sex desire.
Когато това желание се прояви да се отличаваме от другите по някакъв начин, това е проява на финното желание, финното помощ.
Yes, because
колко има вече за това душа, да продължава политиката на живота. Това не е причина това, да се подобрявам по-скоро с това, и да продължавам по-скоро с това, той в повечето случаи да контролира сетивата на индивидуалността.
The mind is eternal, the soul eternal, the soul, and because always knows the soul mind, and is the reason that we are the mind is stronger than intelligence.
this is a speculative question. So, the symptom of this soul is consciousness. Just like sunlight is the symptom of the sun. So what we call the mind generally means the subtle body. Which is Chaitana. Chaitana means contaminated consciousness. So, consciousness is the symptom of the soul, but when consciousness becomes captivated by the modes of nature, then it is called Chaitana. And the modes manifest within this Chaitana. as false ego, which is mode of ignorance, as intelligence, which is mode of passion, and as mind, which is mode of goodness.
И те се проявяват чрез като учило его, което е невежеството, интелигентност, която е външна свестта и умът, който е външно добро.
So each has its own way of working, each of these three, because each is produced from a different mode of nature.
И всяко едно от тях има свой собствен начин на действие, защото всяко едно е реално определен вид първо крило.
But the substance is the same. The substance is just contaminated consciousness.
Но основата е една и съща, замърсено съзнание.
Mm-hmm. So you asked, anyway, this reason you gave about why the mind is sometimes stronger than the intelligence.
Ти казваш, защо умът по-силен от интелигентността.
But the real answer is simply, this is the workings of the modes of nature.
Истинският отговор е, че просто това са взаимодействието на външните на природа.
Sattvam bhavati vibhuya rajas tamas. You know, the Bhagavad Gita says, sometimes mode of goodness is prominent, so sometimes the mind is more powerful. Sometimes the mode of passion is prominent, then the intelligence is more powerful. Sometimes the mode of ignorance becomes prominent, then the false ego is most powerful.
И казва, понякога винаги най-доброто взема връх, да умът е по-силен, понякога много местността, да интелигентността е по-силен, понякога много невежество. Това ще да
So, in our subtle body, the mind, there is this constant struggle for supremacy of the modes of nature. And this struggle we experience as contaminated consciousness. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How it changes during different lives. How it's always.
The subtle body, you take life after life, wherever you go, it follows the soul. It is called Linga Sharira. So it consists of, as I said, mind, intelligence, false ego, and also the subtle senses. The subtle 11 senses. Or 10 senses, rather. This, we already said mind. So what changes is simply the shape of the subtle body. Mm-hmm. We shape the subtle body by our activities. So when you receive a human body, the subtle body is also that same shape, human-like, personal.
И когато ние получим човешко тяло, финното тяло също има човешка форма.
But if we engage this human body in animalistic activities, then that reshapes, that begins to shape the subtle body differently.
Но ако ние ангажираме това тяло само в животински дейности, тогава тези дейности формят по нов начин финното тяло.
And that can be seen, I said the other day, in the face. Prabhupada said the face is the index of the mind.
И това може да бъде видяно в лицето, както казахме, Прабхупада казал, лицето е индикатор на умата.
So, when a human being engages in doggish activities, gradually his face resembles that of a dog.
Когато човешкото същество се занимава с кучешки дейности, тогава постепенно лицето му подобрява това на куче.
That means his subtle body is taking the shape of a dog already in the human form.
Това означава, че неговото финно тяло приема формата на куче още в човешки организъм.
Then, when he gives up the human body, the Yamadutas will take the subtle body down to the Naraka Loka, and they will complete that reshaping by their own methods, and then place that subtle body within the appropriate gross form, dog form. And in this way it's released from the lower planets.
И когато настъпи смъртта, ямадите вземат душата и долу формат това финно тяло. И след на Нарaka Loka и след това ги освобождават в някаква подходяща животинска форма.
But the subtle body is the same. It just changes shape, life after life.
Но финното тяло е едно и също. Това просто сменя самата форма.
Awesome.
Explain more clear the difference between these thoughts you have just explained how all sequent manifestation, senses and objects, and this impersonal conception about that everything is existing only in our minds. Моля да обясни разликата между това, което той току-що обясни за фалшивото его и проявяването на световата и имперсоналната концепция, че всичко съществува в ума.
Well, the impersonalists have a different idea of what is the mind. In Bhagavatam philosophy, the souls are individual, and in the material world, each soul has his own individual subtle body. And because of the desires of the subtle body, then the subtle body becomes covered by a gross body, life after life after life. So all of this is going on under the direction of the Lord. The impersonalists, on the other side, they say there's only one soul. Brahman. And Aham Brahmasmi, I am that Brahma. And the conception of so many individual living entities and that they're transmigrating from life to life to life. This is all, yes, a creation of the mind of this one soul. And that creation is just Maya. It's like a dream. Has no existence. So therefore, everything that we are experiencing in this world is not happening at all. And they say, liberation is attained when you just wake up out of this dream. You just say to yourself, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. Only the one soul is real, and all of this is unreal. Then you're liberated. So these two conceptions are very, very, very different. In Vaishnava or Bhagavata understanding, to get free of illusion means to give up the false sense of independence and to be Krishna's servant, to engage the mind, senses, everything in Krishna's service as he desires, as he has planned. Therefore he has manifested all these forms of the living entities. But for impersonalists, there's no surrender. So it's a very different conception. You see, for Vaishnava, as we've been hearing, this is the creation of the Lord, so therefore it is real. Although it is material, material means it's temporary, but nonetheless, it is real because it is the energy of Krishna. And we are really in bondage, and simply by saying to ourselves, I'm liberated, will not liberate us. One is only liberated when he engages the mind and senses as Krishna directs. But the impersonalists, they don't accept that. Yeah, they say it's all in the mind. In the sense that this Maya is happening by my mind. So I just change my mind and stop it, and I'm free. All right, so do it. Of course, they're clever. Then they say, yes, I did it. Now, before that was my karma, now it's my lila. Now I'm God. So Srila Prabhupada's reply to that is, kick on their face with a boot. And this is also your lila. Yes, Aframaya.
Resulted seeing our faults and our justification. What is the way to meditate how to remove them and in the same time not to become meditative in the way that that's to be considered all the time?
Well, the first point is simple. That Vaishnava is humble, but what does humility mean? Vaishnava is the most humble because he's Krishna's servant. The humility means service. If you're actually considering yourself humble, it means you consider yourself servant. But any other position, you see, to a position of non-service, you may say that's I'm not serving because I'm humble. But this is nonsense. Because Krishna wants you to serve. So if you say, I don't know, if you refuse, even you say, I'm refusing because I'm too humble, this is not humility. This is unwillingness to surrender. You see? This is also Arjuna's proposition in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. He said, oh, I cannot fight. You see, I cannot do this. I'm too saintly. So he was trying to make some kind of argument like that. This is sinful activity. I don't want to become corrupted. So he's giving very nice reasons why he should not fight. And Krishna said, this is all nonsense what you said. The whole point of Bhagavad Gita, this is the whole lesson in Bhagavad Gita, is that you are Krishna's servant. So this is your only real position, to serve Krishna. Anything else, any other position is Maya, is illusion. Whether you give so many nice sounding high arguments or not. But whether or not the soul is in his right position is simply understood by service. So that's the first point. And the second point was, how do we become purified of without being disturbed in devotional service? That's easy also, easy answer. You just do your devotional service, because that's the process. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. One should be always engaged in Krishna's service, and that is the means by which all impurities are removed. Well, if you want to do your service better, then you do your service better. The bad qualities will be removed by Krishna when he sees your sincere desire to do your service better. But doing your service, chanting Hare Krishna, following the regulatory principles and so on, is the way, the means by which we get free of these impurities. And yes, we should always want to do our service better. That is, as I was saying yesterday, that is our natural position. If we are Krishna conscious, then we are able to understand, at least a little, how great, how wonderful Krishna is. So naturally, we feel we must serve him better and better, because he is always getting better and better. He's already the best, already perfect, but he becomes more and more perfect with every moment. So our service also, likewise, must become more and more perfect. Must be. That's the meaning of relationship with Krishna. So we simply must have that desire. That must be our sincere prayer. I'm trying to serve you, my Lord. Please accept this service. Please let me stay with you as your servant. And seeing our sincerity, the Lord says, all right. He permits us to continue to serve Him. And by giving us that permission, we are purified. See? Just by being in that proximity or that association with Krishna, rendering service, being in contact with Him, we are purified from moment to moment to moment. We're always being purified. So the answer is very simple. One simply has to remain engaged in Krishna's service. And everything else comes automatically. You don't have to do something outside of devotional service to purify yourself, to prepare yourself to serve Krishna. Prabhupada never tolerated such an idea. Prabhupada told the story of one of his godbrothers who he was sent by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to the West to preach, but he was not successful. He went to England, but then returned, and because he felt ashamed that he was not successful, so he thought, I have to purify myself. So then he went somewhere, Himalayas or somewhere, and did austerities and worshipped Lord Shiva in order to become purified, to be able to please his spiritual master more. And when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati heard about this, he said, he has not understood anything. Because the process of advancement, the process of becoming qualified, of advancing in devotional service is not outside of devotional service. It's part and parcel of devotional service. One simply should serve Krishna. Just do that. And everything is accomplished. Alright, so we have to stop now. It's 9:30. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. City far away.
Случило така, че Крита яхнал един кон и препускал и отишъл далече от някакъв света.
And then in that city, he joined the company of gamblers.
И в този град той се присъединил към хората, които играят хазарт.
And he was, with his magic dice, he was winning much money.
Със своите волшебни зарове побеждал спечелен много.
And he was thinking, I'm safe.
И си мислил, аз съм спасен.
I'm in a new place and I'm surrounded by new friends.
Намерих си много място, имам нови приятели.
But one night when he was with his gambling friends, and he was playing the dice, suddenly there was a sound from outside, a sound of very awkward steps and dragging.
Но една нощ, когато бил със своите нови приятели, отвън непрекъснато се чува един странен звук на силно стъпване и влачене.
And suddenly the door burst open, and in the door there was this same half-moving dead body.
И вратата изведнъж се разтворила и там се появил същото това наполовина съживено тяло.
So it was advancing on the left leg, and the left arm was reaching, and the left eye was rolling, and the left part of the mouth was moving, and the right side was all rotting, dead, rotting flesh.
И това изглеждало много ужасно. Лявата ръка и левият крак, лявата ръка се потягала напред, лявата част от устата се свирила, лявото око също изгледало много зловещо, а дясната част на тялото била гнило.
And this ghostly creature was crying, Unadika kritam kritam.
И това ужасно същество
What you have done is too little and too much and nothing at all.
Което направи не е достатъчно, в същото време е твърде много и не е изобщо нищо.
So, seeing this, all those gamblers, they died of heart attack.
И виждайки всичко това, всички тези всички тези комарджи умряли от сърдечна.
The gambler, Kritam, Brahmana, he managed to escape. And again he traveled long distance and went to another city. And there he took up with a prostitute. He was living with her in her house. So one night he was sitting with her, and again at the door there was a dragging sound. And the door burst open, and in came this living, half dead body. And by this time, the right half, the dead half, all the flesh had rotted away. There were only bones. One half of the body was just a skeleton. The other half had flesh. And the eye was rolling, and the hand was reaching.
Но този път дясната част била напълно изгинала, месото била изпадало напълно и била станали само костите. Така че наполовината то било живо, протягало се, окото завършно се въртяло, а дясната част била просто част на скелет.
And the ghost cried, Unadikam Kritam Kritam.
И този дух отново повтаря Унадика.
What you have done is too little, too much, and nothing. So the prostitute, she dropped dead up front. And the Brahmin, Krita, he could not find any way to escape except the window to the street, but this was high up, this was on an upper floor. So he jumped from the window and killed himself.
И този брамана нямал друго място, където да избяга от центъра на прозореца, но тъй като те били на горния етаж, на твърде високо и той скочил там.
So like that, the living entity foolishly, out of shock at the reaction of his own activities, which come after him life after life, like a zombie. The foolish living entity sometimes attempts to commit suicide by merging into Brahman. But what happens when you commit suicide? What happens? Yes, become a ghost. This means you have no body, but still the mind is there, consciousness is there, and desires are there. So one is always troubled by unfulfilled material desires, but he has no body in which to satisfy them. A ghost, if feels hunger, feels thirst, he feels sex desire, he also wants to have company with other people.
Един дух огладнява, ожеднява, има също така сексуални желания, също така желая да има и приятели.
But he cannot satisfy any of these desires because there's no body.
Но не може да удовлетвори нито едно от тези желания, защото няма тяло.
So the ghost comes among people.
Така че духът се приближава към хората.
And he's just trying to, you see, he's trying to associate with those people, get something to eat, get some friendship. Generally, the ghosts, they're not even able to make themselves noticed. They're just in the ether trying to, there's some person, let's say, sitting at his table eating, and the ghost is also trying to eat and saying to the person, give me something, give me something. But the person cannot notice him because he's a ghost. And if somehow or other the ghost is powerful enough that the person does notice him, then it's a big disturbance. Oh!
Обикновено духовете не могат дори да направят така, че хората да ги забележат. Например, ако един дух се приближи и види човек, който се храни, той също се приближава, опитва се да яде от тази храна, но понеже няма тяло, не може да го направи и вика на човека, дай ми малко храна, но той не го забелязва изобщо. И все пак, ако има някакъв дух, който е достатъчно силен, той може по някакъв начин да се прояви, да се покаже пред човека, но ако това се случи, тогава изведнъж има голямо притеснение за човека. Той
So it's a very unfortunate situation.
Така че това е една много нещастна.
So similarly, in the Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual effulgence, the jiva has no body, although his consciousness is there and desires are there.
По същия начин в Брахма Джоти, когато живото съществува там, умът и съзнанието съществува.
There is no way to fulfill his desires.
Но няма начин да бъдат изпълнени желания.
But after a long, long time, then by the grace of Lord Shiva, he can be granted a body in the material world again.
Но след дълго време, карано там, по милостта на Бог Шива, такова живо същество може да получи отново възможност да има тяло материално.
Just as Lord Shiva is Bhutanath, he is the Lord of all the ghosts, and he arranges that they get material bodies. So similarly, Lord Shiva, he presides over this region, this impersonal region between Vaikuntha and the Mayadam. And he also arranges that these jivas in the Brahma Jyoti can enter the material world and get body.
Шива е господарят на духовете